Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Making Family Engagement More Transformative. I'm Rebecca Bauer, National PTA's Family Engagement Specialist, and I'm happy to introduce Tracy Potts. We are so glad she could join us today to lead this webinar and share her experience. Tracy Potts is a National PTA Family Engagement Fellow and board member. Her 12 years of PTA volunteer work include local, council, and state leadership roles. She served as an elementary and middle school PTA president, leading her school to become the first national PTA School of Excellence in her district. She also serves as vice president of administration for the Montgomery County Council of PTAs and chair of family and community engagement for Maryland PTA. In 2017, Tracy received the Maryland PTA Lifetime Achievement Award and Honorary Lifetime Membership Award. Professionally, Tracy has spent more than 2 decades as an affiliate correspondent for NBC News. She works with her husband of 22 years, a youth minister, to inspire young people, including their 3 children and 2 grandchildren. We're very fortunate to have her with us today. Tracy, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for introducing me. Thank you, everyone, for being here and taking a look at some of the ways that we can better engage families. Rebecca, if you'll advance to that next slide for me. One of the things I like to do up front is acknowledge all of the wonderful work that you already do as a PTA leader. Because of you, there's a lot of power in PTA. Just take a look at the things that you're already doing. We offer programming to educate and empower families, which is a big part of our mission. You facilitate connections between families and teachers. How many times have you had a parent come up to you at an event, they have a challenge, and you know someone who can really help them out with the issue, the particular issue that that family or that child is facing? We create that bridge between home and school life. That's what PTA does. And then we also teach our community, our whole school community, about things like healthy lifestyles, internet safety, literacy, STEM, and lots of other things. You probably recognize some of those topics because they are a big part of the PTA programs and grants that we offer that so many of you have taken advantage of. So now that you're already really out there doing things, let's talk about how we can take family engagement one step further. One of the things that we like to talk about at the Center for Family Engagement are the 4 principles of transformative family engagement. So transformative means we're going to change it up a little bit. And we're going to do so by focusing on these 4 principles. Making our engagement inclusive. That means making an extra effort to make sure that we're embracing and valuing diverse perspectives. In other words, getting out there and thinking about who we're not including, who are we not reaching, and reaching out to all families. One of the things that the research has shown us families really want is an individualized experience. So we do a lot of big events very well, but people are also looking to come and find out something that will meet the unique needs of their particular child. They want a takeaway that they can use for their child at home. The research has also shown us that family engagement needs to be integrated. So when you're planning those wonderful PTA programs that you do, think about how can I connect and align this with the educational system, either with the curriculum, with a program that's happening at school, with a new initiative, something that kids are learning in the classroom. How can we connect our engaging programs with that? And then finally, it's always so important to make sure our programs have impact. Our goal is to empower families to support their students' success. So we want to be sure that we go back and take a look, that we ask people if the programming that we're offering was impactful. So today we want to take a look at how we can do this even better than you already are. So let's break down those 4 principles. What does it mean to be inclusive? One of the things as PTA leaders that we have to focus on is intentional relationship building. You know, one of the things I used to like to do as a local PTA leader when I had the opportunity was just hang out in the car loop after school or sit in the office when I had a chance, even if it was just for 30 minutes, to meet people and talk about what PTA does and how we make those connections. As I said earlier, inviting diverse perspectives. We want to make sure that we're doing as our national standards suggest, welcoming all families, and then questioning our assumptions. You know, sometimes when we don't see people at a meeting, at events, we think, oh, they're not really interested, they don't really care. But there could be other reasons why. So we want to question those assumptions. And here are some specific strategies that you can use. Think about using name tags when you have events. Sometimes we do that at meetings, sometimes we don't, but it's helpful to build community when you can walk up to someone and say, hi, Joan, or hi, John, as opposed to just being in a room with a lot of strangers. Providing interpretation. That's a big one. A large percentage of our families in many of our school districts do not speak English, or they are English as a second language learners. So we want to make sure that we do what we can to open that line of communication. And then finally, meals, transportation, childcare, these are huge. We want to remove any possible barrier for people being included in family engagement activities. And let's give you one example of one school that has made their inclusiveness a real part of their PTA activities. Here's what inclusiveness looks like in action. Dolph Briscoe Middle School PTA, which was one of our national PTA schools of excellence this year, adapted their events because they wanted to better serve non-English speaking families. So they have a math and science night like many of us do. They made sure that there was Spanish on all of the signs in the common areas in the school. They provided dinner, which not only helps get people there, right, because they're busy and they don't want to have to make dinner and then rush to school, but it's also a nice getting to know you thing. It creates community building before and during your event. And then also they made sure that non-English speaking families had the opportunity to be paired with a family that was familiar with the school and join them in the activity. So they followed them around in the rotations, sort of like a family buddy system. And that's really a good example of how we can be more inclusive. So let's take a look at our next principle, which is making sure that our efforts are individualized. That means giving people personal invitations. So keep in mind, sometimes we go to really big schools and you think, okay, well, I can't handwrite invitations to 900 families, but you can reach out in a more personal way. People are looking for tailored experiences and they want you to be very responsive to their individual needs. So some strategies that we found here, we can invite families in person or by phone. And let me address this because I was PTA president at a middle school that had about 900 kids. So I couldn't make 900 phone calls and I was not going to sign 900 letters. There are a couple of ways that you can do that. Focusing on specific groups. Again, focusing on inclusiveness. If there are certain groups that you know are part of your school, but you don't see them at events very often, maybe individualized invitations targeting that specific group as opposed to the whole. Offer activities that engage all students in meaningful ways. So again, we want to focus on our English language learners, our students with special needs, our families with transportation challenges. And then finally, we want to create multiple ways for parents and for caregivers to engage. This is really important, regardless of their knowledge of a content area. So when we're designing programs, make sure that people don't have to have a significant amount of prior knowledge or experience because they're coming to get that from us. Here's one example of how a school has put individualized family engagement in action. Stephen Millard Elementary School had about 400 participants at their STEM Plus Families event. So here was their feedback on that. They said that the most effective form of marketing, we hear this all the time, was word of mouth. They had a core group of volunteers that started with those one-on-one conversations with parents. And even though people weren't always into math, they sparked new dialogue about math and the popularity grew. This kind of goes back to my example of, just hanging out sometimes and talking with people. is really a good way. You know, flyers are great, email is great. You can reach a lot of people at once, but there's really nothing like having conversations because they have such a personal impact on people. And then it makes them want to go and tell someone else, hey, I heard about this. Why don't you come with me? So I thought that was a great example of individualizing our engagement. Now, our next principle is integrated. This gives us an opportunity to do something that we talk about as PTA leaders all the time, putting the T back in PTA. And I know because you're a PTA leader, you probably know that T stands for teachers. People do ask sometimes. But it's really important that when we're planning things, whether they be family fun nights or maybe even events we've always done, we find a way to link those events to learning and go beyond just the one-time event. So what can the long-term takeaway be for a participant at one of these family engagement events? One of the things we can do to really make sure that we're linking to learning is include teachers up front. Ask them before, during, and after the event. I remember one of the best events I ever did was a 5K. I'd never done one before, but I planned it with a teacher, and we were able to build in not only some of her skills and things that she was interested in. She was a math teacher, but we were also able to build in some things in terms of community service that she had tried to pitch with her students in the classroom. Connect the event to the curriculum when you can by drawing on activities that students are doing in the classroom. So maybe inviting teachers in to demonstrate for parents what their kids are doing in the classroom, or creating events that somehow involve some element of the curriculum. It's a good way to reinforce and also to build that relationship between parents and teachers. And then finally, share ways that families can continue learning at home. Any resources that you can give families. Our research is showing people are hungry for this. So if you can give them a book list, if you can give them ideas, if you can give them small manipulatives to help their kids at home with math. I saw a video of a group of parents who were learning math, and they were given time devices so that they could go home and they could time their children in terms of how they were doing with math. Any takeaways that you can put in the hands of parents are really helpful. One example of how a school has put this into action, this is one of my favorite examples. Loftus Middle School PTA in Tennessee. This was a two-time Schools of Excellence winner in 2017 and again in 2019. They hosted an escape room during their back to school week. So what they did, they first of all collaborated with teachers to create puzzles that were aligned with the curriculum standards. And these puzzles were placed in different rooms. They had a big event. Families came, kids came with their parents, and you probably know how an escape room works. In order to get out of the room, they had to solve the puzzle. So here's an event where the PTA and the teachers are working together. The teachers put together the puzzles. The PTA dealt with the logistics of the event and getting the families there, rewarding the families. And the kids and their parents were able to work together on something that the kids were actually doing in class. Turned out to be a very successful event. Finally, our last of the 4 I's of family engagement is being impactful. We make a lot of efforts, but it's really important to stop and take a look back and get feedback and make sure that what we're doing is working. Are parents really developing the knowledge and the skills that they need to help their kids? Are we giving them opportunities, as you just saw in that last example, to actually practice and interact with their children? And do we have a way of measuring our success? Because oftentimes that gives us ways that we can improve or tweak things for next time. Asking participants for their feedback is a great way of doing that. We can do it with conversations. We can do it with surveys. One of my favorite suggestions recently was just pull out your phone and ask people if you can ask them a quick question on camera, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. It not only gives you feedback, but it also gives you a great way to promote your event for next time. You can post those, of course, with their permission. You can share them on social media. You can send them out in your e-newsletters, and people can see, wow, people really like what's going on in PTA. Maybe next time I'll come. Offer hand activities that enable families to practice what they've learned. We talked a little bit about that. What can you put in a small package for them that they can take home and practice? And then finally, incorporating opportunities for families to share what they've learned through discussion and reflection. So sometimes the best way to get the feedback is to get people together in small groups and have them talk about it. Great way to do this is a movie night where there may be some very real takeaways about school, the school experience, students, and how they approach their work, their development. It's great to have small discussion groups afterwards to talk about what people have learned. So those are our 4 I's, and that is how we make sure that our efforts are impactful. Here's an example of that. Hooksett PTA. This is another school of excellence. You notice we have a lot of examples from those. They distributed an event, post-event survey, and then they use that data to inform their future work. So what the Hooksett PTA told us is that the survey data helped them understand how effectively their families were informed about the topic. And then it also gave them ideas. It gave them additional topics that families would like addressed at future forums. And that's great. It's like having a big brainstorm session when you do something like that. So that's our 4 I's. Those are some examples of each one. We hope that they were helpful in sort of framing for you ways that you can take the great work that you're already doing and just tweak it a little bit so that we can transform family engagement into something that can be a lot more useful to families. Rebecca, if you could advance to that last slide for me. And I'm going to turn it back over to Rebecca, but I would just encourage you all to join the movement. This is something that I'm extremely passionate about, having worked as a national fellow with the Center for Family Engagement and doing the same thing you're doing, working as a local and a district leader. It's just so important that we begin to think about family engagement in pretty much everything we do, all of our programs, all of our policies, and National PTA is a great resource for that. So thank you for your time today. I hope it's been useful. I hope you've learned something, and I'll turn it back over to Rebecca.
Tracy, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge with us today. I really enjoyed all of those examples, and I know that PTA leaders are going to have so many new strategies to start implementing the day they watch. So thank you for that, and I want to thank our audience for joining us as well. I encourage you to go to www.pta.org/family-engagement for even more resources related to these 4 I's and other ways you can make your family engagement more transformative. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at familyengagement@pta.org. I check that inbox regularly, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you all so much for your time, and we hope you will join us again soon.